6 months ago, we made a student game project called Greed in Darkness, and it was a huge success. Right now, we're continuing development to make it a much bigger and more fleshed out game, with lots of new gameplay and content, but more on that later. In the game, your village has sent you to a dark fortress to collect a small fortune of gold so the village will survive. The dungeon is dark and you must carry a torch to see where you are, or put it out to sneak past the monsters guarding the place, or fight them head on with a sword in hand in a simple but satisfying combat system. You must manage your time within the fortress, because when your daytime runs out, the master of the fortress, the Gorged One, will awake and begin hunting you down. Your goal is to solve puzzles and find the keys to his treasure vault, and take what you can without waking him up. Our project leader, David, based the idea on an old board game called Drakborgen, where you explore a dungeon where each room tile is randomly pulled from a stack, with plenty of monsters and traps along the way. The goal of the game was to reach the dragon's hoard and take what you could without waking the dragon in the process. Sounds familiar, right? We developed the whole thing in about 2 months. And something you quickly realize when developing a game is that your scope has to be small enough to develop a simple experience and polish it enough to be shipped at the end of the 2 months. 2 months sounds like a lot until you realize that you have to give every feature you want to include numerous passes of testing and quality assurance before it's actually ready to go. We ended up cutting several features from Greed and Darkness in order to ship it by the end of the project, like enemies moving between rooms, different enemy types, fast travel points, and procedural generation of the dungeon. The end result was a much more condensed version of the core experience, without any of the unnecessary fluff. The whole game was made in 2D. All the walls, enemies, props, and animations are done with pixel art, in combination with animating the precisions and scale in Unity. At the start of the project, we initially considered making it in 3D, and projecting the graphics onto a mesh that we could actually move around in 3D space. But I thought making the game's rooms fully animated with pixel art would grant its retro aesthetic a great bit more charm. It takes a lot more work to animate each asset to give it the illusion of being in a 3D space, but it's worth the effort. My job throughout the project was essentially to implement the graphics and make the systems that would enable them. The extra effort ended up paying off, because when we released it, thanks to Alpha Beta Gamer finding the game and covering it, the game was played over 16,000 times on itch.io, and we ended up getting over 300,000 views on our YouTube trailer. Seeing people connect with the game and reading all the reactions to it online was super rewarding, and it inspired us to create a Steam page for the game. A lot of players' responses to the game were super positive, even though they were addressing some pretty severe bugs. It was always funny seeing people say like, I really love the game, the pixel art feels super charming and the combat feels great. Unfortunately, I got soft-locked and the game crashed repeatedly and my PC exploded, but besides that it was really cool. So we decided to buckle down and fix the game before releasing it for real on Steam. Ever since the release on itch 6 months ago, we've kept working on the game and refining it, adding quality of life features and overhauling the underlying code. During the testing, we found many of the bugs people were experiencing, but some we couldn't even replicate, let alone identify in the code. A lot of the instability stemmed from the grid system, so the programmers rebuilt what they could and replaced the worst problem areas. Their focus was on making key parts of the system more stable and maintainable. This took time, especially since we're balancing the development with our full-time studies. That's the reason why it's taken us so long to put out another update. We've been meticulously rebuilding massive chunks of the game to make it as stable as possible for when people finally play it on Steam. Let me quickly go over some of the improvements we've made so you can get a sense of just how much we've been working on. We've added controller support, so now you can play the game with joysticks or the D-pad instead. Some of us actually much prefer this way of playing, highly recommend trying it out. We've also added better Steam Deck support. This was a personal mission of mine. The transitions between rooms are now seamless. This required a total redesign of how we handle the rooms in the game graphically. It's hard to convey just how much work goes into game dev sometimes, but this little bug took me a couple of weeks to work out. We've added a pause menu. Previously you had to hold down the escape key for 3 whole seconds in order to quit the game. Now in the settings you can tune the brightness, volume, controller symbols, accessibility features, and so on. We've added fixes to the color and lighting shader, so the infamous disco bed no longer plagues us. We've made improvements to the combat mechanics. Now it's no longer possible to just spam inputs to win. You have to be more strategic in order to land successful blows. We've made innumerable graphical improvements to the gesture, the loot, the shop, the borders, the barricades, new post-processing, and more. We've overhauled and improved the tutorials. There are new sound effects and improvements to the spatial audio system. We've also added a gold counter to the end of the game, so now players can keep track of their scores and compare it to each other. And there have generally just been many hours of game testing and bug fixing. When we started nearing the finish line, we went to our first convention floor and showed off the game to a ton of people who were curious about the game. Seeing people's reactions in real time to the game we've been slaving over for 8 months was so cool, and it made me really excited about the entire project all over again. A pro tip for my fellow game developers watching this, putting your game on display on a Steam Deck drew so many people in that were initially just curious about the console, and when they got to hold it in their hands, they were like, oh, by the way, what's this game about? They had that aha moment when they got to feel what the game was like to play, and they got hooked after that. It served like a lure to get people interested enough to come and get interested for real, if that makes any sense. When we released the game back in January, we didn't expect it to take off like it did, so we hadn't bothered to come up with a proper team name up until that point.
Oh shit, not good.
Anyone who's tried to create a branding before will know just how difficult it can be to come up with an iconic, clever brand name that people will unite under and stick in someone's mind. After a few more weeks in the oven, and literally dozens of contenders later, we finally decided on Rescue Party Interactive. This was a way more popular suggestion, and we're excited to continue development under this new name. So, what's next for Rescue Party and Greed in Darkness? Well, the Steam release is actually going to be a free demo, basically the definitive version of our student project. Beyond that, we've been designing a brand new gameplay loop and a bunch of new content. If you saw the Steam announcement trailer, you'll remember seeing a lantern and a shield being equipped, alongside a new enemy appearing. We're planning on adding new player classes with unique mechanics and a slew of new puzzles, bosses and enemies. We're planning to add a layer of story progression to the game, and you'll get to visit your village after every run into the dungeon. The gold you accumulate will be spent on upgrades to your village and deciphering the scrolls that you find in the fortress. You'll unlock new spells and items and get to customize your equipment to fit your build. Every time you enter the dungeon, the layout will be randomized. Our goal is to add a lot more replayability and new quests to the game, as well as a greater meta progression. We're creating the new version of the game from the ground up to support all of these new elements and to greatly improve the underlying systems, and we're exploring how to improve the basic experience even further. It's still in early development, so it's too early to promise anything, but we'll need the support of the community to make this happen. The Steam demo I've talked about in this video actually releases today, so if you're interested in this game, check out the link in the description and try it out. If you want to keep tabs on the game in the future or join us on the journey of making Greed in Darkness come to life, wishlist it on Steam and join our Discord server, where we'll be hosting events, posting updates, holding art competitions, and involving the community in the direction of the game's development. If you've enjoyed this video and want to see more of what we do, like the video and leave a comment telling us what you'd like to see in the new version of Greed in Darkness. To finish off, I also just want to clarify that this YouTube channel is my own personal channel, so I will be posting about other game projects and art that I make. But this will also be where I share updates and content regarding Greed in Darkness, so subscribe if that's what you're here for. Thanks so much for watching the video, wishlist Greed in Darkness on Steam, and stay tuned for more. See you in the next one.